what's up, Quentin? Thanks for joining us here. I want to get started. We're gonna title this one from a MLM life insurance agent to a really successful agent. I want to first give the audience some evidence too. You've probably seen these videos in the past, and you just joined us here at Legacy Family Life. Your first month with us, you sold 31 policies from August 1st to August 31st. Is that right? And what was your best week alone? I think you can elaborate a little bit more on that.
I was about to say, I was just looking at my weeks, and keep track of some of the better ones, but at least the one I kept track of the most was probably actually this past week where we did about 9K. And then in the past 2 weeks, we've done a total of about 17,000 in AP. So
Absolutely.
it's absolutely insane.
Yeah, man. That's great work. I wanted to make this video one of the weeks. I was like, I promise you can come on the channel if you did 10 policies in a week. And I think your most policies in a month was like 7. Is that right?
Yeah, it was like,
7 policies. Absolutely. And I think what's going to be really most helpful for the audience today is helping them see like the two sides of the industry. Because privately, before when you just got started, you probably sold the dream of the MLM, like come in here. And now that you've learned different systems, way to sell, what do you think has been one of the biggest takeaways of this last month of learning that has really allowed you to have amazing results when, prior you were, I could tell that you had the skill set, but you just weren't put in the right position to succeed. So what has been most helpful for you?
definitely. I would say the biggest things that you don't really acknowledge in the insurance industry is the amount of support that you receive. And
Mm,
so coming over here, the instant thing that I immediately acknowledged was just the amount of support that you receive, not only from our own managers that like Brandy and Keeper, but also getting the support, especially from the very jump is, I mean, just learning strictly from you, someone where, beforehand, I used to watch all your videos. I used to use all of that in like, the other space when I was just doing it, 1099 kind of work. And then, it kind of just translates. You don't realize how much support you can grow with. And so whenever you do get that support that you can grow with, they can fix your mistakes and fix all these minor patches in there, and they just know how to work with you. I think that was the biggest thing I noticed was just helped me improve throughout. I definitely appreciate that so much.
Sweet. Yeah. I think we're getting a little bit of interruption for the Wi-Fi, but basically it's having support. What do you think are some, especially for new agents who might be trying to figure this thing out that are struggling, what were some like bad habits that you think you had initially coming in that really prevented you from being successful, at your first opportunity, you think?
I would say just some of the tools and resources as well was also another thing that you don't really realize yet. It can be as small as having the toolkits. We didn't really focus so much on the underwriting per se. We
Hmm.
just kind of just took everything for what the client was previously saying. So whenever you kind of become an expert with the underwriting, you have all the tools and resources like to be able to help us exceed our dials in volume and put in more volume during the day. That was something that like was difficult to track as a former agent in another MLM space. But when you get over to here, keeping track of your numbers and keeping track of your volume, your input, and then also, how you're going about it. Are you focusing on the mirroring? Are you focusing
Yeah.
on everything that goes into it? So there's a lot that would go into it, but I would say, um, definitely just having a lot of tools, resources, and support has just been the biggest thing to all just come together.
Yeah, so you're saying the tools, resource, and support. When it comes to, like the actual sales side of things, um, how have you like really structured your day as an agent, or like what does life look like for you? Like, was it kind of the same like prior till now, or what are some ways that you structured your day to really have a fast track as a life insurance agent with us? But what is it? How did you change any daily habits that allowed you to like propel and become more successful faster?
Definitely. I would say that, I used to be working, I mean, every single day, I mean, 7 days a week, from, I mean, probably 6 a.m. to about 9 p.m., sometimes even like 12 a.m. I would probably work about 15 to 18 hours a day. And
Mhm.
it's just crazy to think that like I was still only selling about 7 policies a week, doing all of that, putting in that amount of work. And you come over here and, the change of, we're here from, as early sometimes we don't leave until 8 p.m. But you realize that, the earlier that you dial, the more often that you get on those phones, as soon as 8:30 hits, we're running. And
Mhm.
you need to be able to make sure that you're really often. You get one before lunch. And then, once you get that one before lunch, the best second one throughout your day is right after you get the first one. So
Yeah.
I think that was a huge help.
Yeah, keep pushing through. Was that your first hat trick ever? Have you sold 3 policies in a day prior?
Never. I think I sold maybe one or two was in the day. So to get a hat trick and then do it the next week as well was just like, it felt good.
Yeah, man, awesome. What are some advice that you give to any like new agents who are getting started in the industry? Like, what are some things that they have to just kind of go through that are like non-negotiables that will eventually turn them into successful agents that you kind of had to just like pay the tax on it because it turned you into a really really successful agent. Anything come to mind?
It definitely has to be the volume. That is the very biggest thing that anyone should ever do. Whether or not you're getting smacked in the face with people, or just the calls are not going your way, it just does not matter. You've got to put in the volume, whether that's 250 dials, whether that's 450 dials. You've got to put in the volume. You've got to make sure that also on the back end, when you do go home at night, as soon as you're done calling, you're not done yet. You still got to listen to all the figure out where you messed up. And then you listen to all the top people that are in that agency and you say, hey, maybe Phil is doing, 12 policies a week and he's doing it continuously. What is he doing that I'm not doing? And how can I
Mhm.
implement the things that he's doing to make sure that I'm sticking to, a 12 policy a week? So you look at all those people, you figure out, what is he doing that maybe I'm not, reach out for help, and they're more than um, resourceful for helping you out too. That's the other biggest thing, is they're just super good at helping you.
Absolutely. So you're touching on like making sure that you're doing the activity and doing the volume of work. And then after in the beginning, you have to keep doing homework. So not only did you then have a long day of calling, but then going in and actually listening to calls. And then after you listen to calls, then be open to feedback and coachability has really been most
Absolutely.
helpful for you. Okay, sweet. What did you do prior to selling life insurance? Just curious.
So I was actually in the medical industry. So
Oh, really?
a healthcare recruiter, and I was a physician
Oh,
recruiter.
yeah.
So I used to recruit doctors, nurses, medical assistants, and it
Yeah.
was just my way of kind of giving back to the community. Was just if I could help provide more health resources for families and people in maybe lower economic status, then I can help them out. Just give people just essentially, I guess it was my way of giving back in the community was by
Yeah.
doing it. So then I found the life insurance industry and was like, you know what? Here's another way that I sharpen my sales skills while also still putting families in the best position possible for life insurance. So
Absolutely. That's so cool. What In regards to agents, what type of lessons have you learned about being ethical in the industry? Going from an MLM company and then working with a company like us, who we really focus on having that unimpeachable character. Like, if you were to speak to new agents and just like making sure they're doing the right thing for Miss Betty, what are some really like important lessons that you would share, either to yourself, probably when you're first getting started, because maybe they weren't as important, but like, what are some ethical things that you've even grown upon to help you become that successful agent while doing it the right way?
definitely, that's actually a huge topic. Just because there's a lot of unethical things I've seen, and there's a lot of they call it foul business, that you just see on an everyday basis when you're in the MLM space. And you've got to be wary, because at the end of the day, like those people that think they're just taking a check and then just going home, and they don't really understand that it does have an impact on these people's lives, on whether or not that policy out, because you're the agent that is supposed to be the field underwriter. You're the one that the insurance company is relying on, full and ethical. And whenever you get these people that are just going in, clicking a whole bunch of no's on all the health questions, then it's just
Mm,
then it really does impact the family, and they don't really take that into consideration. So when you come to a place like this, where not only are we serving families to the highest standard, but we're also being ethical while doing it. And so it creates a stronger relationship. There's a more ethical relationship, and it actually goes a long way whenever you're being very truthful to these families. They understand it. They see that you're not there to hurt them. You're actually there to just help them instead. So it feels more genuine, more true, and it, again, just feels greater knowing that it is
yeah.
a business.
Absolutely. I know when you were originally starting, you had to handle with like chargebacks and you had to pay all those chargebacks and like get stuck with those. Is there anything that you learned that helped you, like if you went back in time that you now know that would have helped you prevent like getting a lot of chargebacks when you first started? Like any like sales tips that you wish you could have first done before us that would have been like, man, maybe I wouldn't have gotten so many chargebacks. Anything kind of come to mind?
Definitely just having like a back end of work. All we think of is when as soon as we get the sale is how can I just get the sale. We never really figure out, or we never really take into consideration, what it's like after the sale. Staying
Mhm.
in touch with families. Making sure that these are absolutely comfortable. Asking discovery questions to the best of your ability to say, hey, when I'm in that call, are there any, is there anything truly holding you back? If so, like let's go ahead and address it, squash it out, so that way we know better. And also just making sure that you're asking all the proper questions to gauge that clientele to say, hey, can they afford it? Is it going to be a big budget? Just actually asking genuine questions to make this truly what they can want and what they can afford. And so that also goes along with making sure you're showing them the right options.
Yeah. Okay. So making sure they sound like an actual product that they need, and then really focusing on like fulfilling the product as well.
Definitely.
Yeah. Awesome. Is there a Is there any advice that you'd give, like, personally to, like, let's say a new agent, let's say if you had a brother and he was coming in the insurance industry, like, what type of feedback would you give him if he was just starting from scratch?
Especially just starting from scratch.
Yeah.
I've actually talked with a couple of people that have reached out to me and that were like, I'd love to get into the space. Like, what does it take to be an insurance agent? And I tell them the same thing. I'm like, honestly, you know, for where I come from, it's like we just go to a 9 to 5, we work our jobs, come home, and then repeat. Like it's that. But you don't realize when you get out of your own space and out of your own community and out of your own bubble, essentially, that there's a whole lot more. So coming into the life insurance industry space, and if you've never done sales on top of that, you really, really need to come in here with a full head of steam saying that I'm going to have to put my head down for a solid 90 days. I'm going to have to get my work done. And it may hurt. I promise you, it is going to build you up stronger than you've ever done before. You're going to feel 1,000 times better about it. So you need to be able to come into this industry with a full headspace that you're ready to work. You're putting your head down for the next 90 days, and you're going to get the work done to be
Yeah.
able to make sure that you're consistently improving.
Exactly, and I think a lot of people, I mean, that's probably why you got into life insurance too, and, like, the traditional MLM models. It's like they're promising you're gonna make all this money really quick. They don't talk about, like, any of the downsides, so it's, like, something that's simple to sell compared to, like, where we're like, "Hey, man, like, you have to work really 90 days to really start seeing your results." I mean, like, why do you think people are, like, sold this dream? And, like, what warnings do you actually, let me ask you this. What warnings do you now see of how you first got started with that MLM company that you wish you knew? Anything kinda come to mind?
Well, I wish I definitely would have learned and known about like the chargebacks and either A, how to avoid them, or B, just how to, work with families to understand like the best processes to like gauge, how to not get chargebacks. Because again, all you see is the money coming in and you're like, great, awesome. I got paid on it. The policy's in effect. I did my job right. But then, just a couple weeks later, then, you get notice and it's like, well, golly, it was like, what the heck is this? I wasn't expecting, like, I actually have to really pay this back. So I guess just like them preaching you, like, giving you all the downside just as much as they gave the upside. They only
Mm,
sell you on the dream of the upside, saying, hey, there's, start your own insurance agency, come move out here full of like-minded individuals. And, you've got hungry to people, which is great. Like, I think it looks great and it sounds great and it was great. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, too, like if you're not ready and fully committed to understanding that you're the sole owner of that company from A to Z, I mean, it's you're genuinely jumping into a business. And that's honestly the biggest advice is that you have to be ready to fully own a business, have the money there, and also have the mindset that like, I mean, there's no other option. That's
yeah,
where
absolutely. Do you feel like and then people don't realize that, like, when you're going into a traditional MLM business, like, you actually are owning the full business. Do you think, like, do you think you were ready like at the time to like if let me ask you this, if you knew you had to build the business and like do the marketing, do the sales, do the customer service, do the lead generation, do you think you would have even started as an insurance agent?
Honestly, probably not.
Yeah.
That's honestly what I've been thinking of about like the past month was like, man, going into an industry like that, was I actually fully ready? Was I like actually, prepared to, actually own an industry because, or not an industry, but an agency of my own,
Yeah.
you don't realize there comes lead costs, not only lead costs, but there's system costs. There are, there's a million and one things you don't really think are there until you're in that moment. You're like, okay, this is real. Like I actually have to get all. I have to make sure that not only my front end is running on 10, but also my back end is running on 10. You don't really think about absolutely everything. So if I had to go back, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not sure if I would have done the whole business on right away. But now that I know about it, it's like okay, I see that there's a whole lot more than what I thought there was.
Yeah. That's the crazy part about it. There's so many like things that you find out way too late in the industry. How's it been like um and advice for agents too, like because we only focus on final expense. How has that been how has that helped you been able just to sell one product, just knowing that you don't have to worry about like IULs or like final expense? Like what would you give the same advice to an agent who's starting to like only find one product, or would you say like it was easier when you were selling other products?
Well, I like the idea of both, but it also just kind of depends. Beforehand, it was a little bit more helpful to have a little bit more courses, but then once you kind of realize that like you're just honing down in on one particular niche, it kind of makes you realize about that statement like why be just someone that's great at everything when you can just be solely good at one thing and you just hone down on that niche of just whole life final expense. Not even worried about the terms, the IULs, the things like that. Um,
Yeah.
when you take the time to hone in on one thing, it makes you feel like you're a true expert just at final expense. And I mean, for the most part, that's really everyone's bread and butter nowadays. It's just, you're going to get the whole life. So they're always a need. When you look at products like terms or you look at products like IULs, in all honesty, they're not really a huge need like your regular whole life insurance. It's more of a want. So when you
Yeah.
to something that everyone needs, there's a large market for it, and you can be the expert. Why not? So I love the fact that we
Absolutely.
do it.
If you when you reached out looking for an opportunity, like were you about to exit the insurance industry? Like, because I know it wasn't really working for you. Like, if were you like kind of like dipping out?
I was about 50-50 on it. I had told no one that I was leaving their MLM. I told nobody. I just didn't want to look like a quitter. You know what? I didn't expect to leave. I fully thought that I was going to make it work no matter what. But then you just start realizing that like you're a lot more unprepared than what you think you are, and
Yeah.
on top of that, just kind of coming back, you just again realize you're like, you know what? I just not sure if like I said, you're not sure if you're fully ready for that type of moment. So I don't think I was,
Yeah.
but again, I'm just super happy to have found this
What,
type of place, and I was definitely about to head back to the healthcare industry in a heartbeat. That
yeah.
was the plan.
Did you feel like I feel like this happens at these MLM companies? They kind of like brainwash you a bit. Did you like? Let me ask this: Were you making pretty good money or no?
No, no,
Yeah.
I was no.
Okay, yeah, so that's fair. Like, and the thing is, you weren't making money. This still have a lot of people like you were making that money, but like their environment and what they make you believe kind of still keeps you there, even though that like life is like money's not coming in. I'm losing money. I'm getting chargebacks. I got high lead costs, but you see your name on the leaderboard, and you're like, maybe I'll stay another. Like, do you feel like there's some like type of it was like even though that was situation probably wasn't good for you, you were still like questioning leaving because of the environment that they created.
That's probably the perfect way to set it to
Yeah.
put it. That's exactly what it was. It's like I had known people there that have been there for almost 2 years, and they have had teams built under them. They have had everything from A to Z. They were like, "Hey, I'm getting my team built. It's taken me about a year. That's what you do is buying into more leads. You just have to keep selling. You have to keep doing this, and it's just like it's gonna work out. It's gonna work out. Like giving you just like the motivation. And that was the beautiful thing about being there on site, was that, you had all those young, hungry, motivated individuals that were giving you this lavish lifestyle that was just like, yeah, this is what it feels like to be an entrepreneur. And then again, you realize on the back end, you're like, all right, hey, I've only sold like 10 policies, whatnot for the month. And you're just like, all right, cool. I've made like, $4,000, but then you realize you're like, okay, hey, I put $2,000 in the leads.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have to, take care of all of just living expenses. And then you just kind of realize you're like, it's really not as much as what they make it seem. So they
Yeah.
force all this recruiting to build their teams, and it's a long, drawn out process to see who can last the longest.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, kind of finish it. What's your goal this month? Like, what are you shooting for, policy wise, premium wise? Like, what do you think you can do now that you're dialed in?
Now that I've seen everything, and I've been here the full month, just my numbers, I don't find it unreasonable that we can't get as close to 40 policies a month as possible.
Yeah.
And top 3, top 5. I've been graciously sitting atop of the top 5 for the past couple of weeks, and it feels good to know that when I was just sitting on the bottom 3 for like the first couple of weeks, it sucked, because I was like, I know I'm better than that. It's just a matter of, how you take it. You stop comparing yourself to others, and you're like, you know what, how can I get better? How can I
Yeah.
make sure that I'm doing as much as I can to put myself to be in that type of position? And then it kind of comes down to daily gratitude. What do you do to make sure that your mental is locked in just as much as you are locked
Mm-hmm.
in? And it goes,
Absolutely. Yeah, man, I'm pumped for you. I love that. Yeah, hopefully. I mean, that's all I had for you, man. I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to add. It's really cool to see that you've been a success story from the content, and ultimately for anybody who's watching out there, hopefully, you can take this as a lesson wherever you're at, and hopefully help you become more successful. I'm not saying work with us. I'm just saying, hey, take some lessons so you don't have to take the hard knocks, because sometimes we have to go through go through things and we can learn through other people. So I appreciate you jumping in with this, Quinn. It was fun.
absolutely. Thanks so much, Peter.